Welcome to Zen Summer, where we talk about healthy living, mind, body, and spirit. Hello again, and this week we're going to be talking about exercise, movement. I prefer to call it movement, although, and we've had Sol and I had a whole conversation why, because I feel like exercise just has some negative connotations, the word itself. So I
Yes.
tend to use the word movement. But I want to talk about movement and why it's good or how it's good at reducing stress, how it's good for maybe getting out some anger. Um,
Yes.
Notice we're doing that whole anger thing again.
Yes.
And I know that you have some really wonderful things that you do for both of those things.
Yes, ma'am. So I've been involved with Taekwondo and yoga for about 5 or 6 years, pretty consistently in my life. There are periods of time that I go without movement. So, and it's not even necessarily that it's movement in general. I usually typically move a lot in life. I'm a person who takes care of a lot of people. And as such, I have to do a lot of moving around to get what needs to get done
Oh,
done.
you still have to chase tiny humans, so.
Right. So yeah, it's kind of just a part of daily life. But if you struggle with movement or movement with a purpose, I think the easiest thing to do is to find something like music or an activity that moves you, an activity that you want to move for. And for in my experience, it's yoga and taekwondo. I used to do, horseback riding and gymnastics and ballet, and I was heavily involved in volleyball with my friend, even though I didn't play on the team.
Know all those things about you. That's a lot. Like you've always been a very active person, and when I met you, you were active. But again, you had tiny humans to chase, or at least at that time, you had a tiny human to chase, and
Right.
he was a very active tiny human. I
Yes, I
know
am.
because I helped chase him some.
Yes. I
but
needed the help for sure.
and I was so glad to offer it because I love your kids. But
Thanks.
I I am not as active. I do enjoy more stable activities like meditation, and for me, I usually sit and meditate. Although I do walking meditation and I enjoy that.
Hmm.
Um, I know that, and you probably saw me do this some. When I get frustrated or angry about things, a lot of times I will go for a walk. When I was getting frustrated at the RV park, I would fast walk around the RV park. And I
Hmm.
used to tell people if I'm walking real fast, you might just want to walk the other way.
Right. Yeah. Signifies a lot of energy needs to be expressed.
Yes, let me do the walking first and then we shall have the conversation.
Yes.
But I would
Well,
like to know how you got. Now, let's start with how you got involved with yoga because when I first met you, you weren't doing Taekwondo. You were doing yoga and you were helping others to do yoga.
right. At the RV park where we both worked, I taught seniors yoga. So the premise essentially is it wasn't really to make money because I didn't. So it was just something I did because I lived in an environment where there was an older population, which I think as we get older and as we age, we don't stretch enough. We don't do enough moving in dynamic ways that gets our body to relax in ways that it hasn't before, or
So
maybe in a long time.
how does yoga help us to relax? Because I honestly I know that you taught it, but I never had time to actually go. So tell me, how does yoga help us to relax? Because I've thought about trying it.
Well, so essentially, physical movement, especially when it's mindful physical movement, often releases dopamine, which is like a happy drug or chemical that your body makes naturally that is released more often or in higher doses when you are physically active. Again, it's better for you if it's mindful. And what I mean by that is you know that this movement is healing for you. And that's why you're doing it, so that you can be more capable, as opposed to, like I have to do this, this hurts a lot. Well, if you're stretching in ways that are gentle, it should not hurt a lot. And if it's hurting too much that you cannot do it, then it's a stretch that might be too difficult for what your body is capable of in this moment. And that's okay. You have to be, patient with yourself and learn your body, just like you have to learn your soul and your mind and your emotions.
Isn't
Taekwondo and yoga,
yoga
it's specific.
isn't yoga also kind of meditative? Like, isn't there a lot of breathing techniques that you do in yoga?
Well, there's a lot of breathing techniques to be able to, essentially, the reason you're doing these things and you're trying to put yourself in a different place mentally is because your body's uncomfortable. And the only way that you're really testing your mental capacity is if you're uncomfortable. But yoga is driven by physical discomfort to help you overcome mental discomfort. Because in reality, it's just your body. Your brain tells your body what to do. So if you are able to push past those boundaries and control your own body in ways that you did not think you were capable of before, it gives you a lot of confidence in what you as a person are able to do. So it gives you working confidence in your capability as a person on this planet. And you have a reason to believe in yourself, even though it might be small. It could just be that you sat down in a chair and you were able to cross your legs for the first time in, I don't know, maybe a few years because your muscles and your body hurts to do it.
So I've heard that yoga is really good for multiple reasons, but I've heard that it's great for weight loss. And I've also heard that like you said, it's really good for getting your muscles to move in ways that maybe you haven't in a long time, but to help stretch those out. And so, is it more stretching, or is it because I can't? I have a hard time picturing stretching being for weight loss. So, is there a lot of
Well, no.
physically
Well, there's
intense kind of
different
thing?
levels to the experience. So you can, just like in any physical sport, you have, beginning, intermediate, and advanced. So in yoga, there's the same idea. Essentially, when you begin yoga, it is more about stretching and learning how your body moves and being able to move in interesting ways that maybe you weren't able to before. But then as you gain experience with yoga, it's about strength, it's about muscle isolation, and it's about breathing techniques to help you control the the endurance of your muscles in these very interesting and difficult positions, both physically and mentally, because your balance has to be a focus as well in a lot of these positions that you are taught to get yourself into.
So I can see that being really helpful in lessening anxiety, to be able to focus on what's going on in your own body, to learn how to have a solid foundation, because
Mm-hmm.
it's about strengthening your core a lot and strengthening that, maybe in stances that give you more balance. And so those types of things, that's very root chakra y, by the way, help give you that safety, that security, that to drive away that anxiety that may be plaguing you. I can also see
Yes.
it being very helpful in, as you get maybe further, like you're talking about higher levels in it, in releasing anger, releasing frustration, releasing other emotions that may be building up in you. Because when you do very physical type workouts, very physical type things, that helps those areas. Am I right?
Well, for sure. Weirdly enough, there's this connection, at least to me, in my opinion, to this this notion that you're hurting yourself in a way. You're not necessarily doing it to hurt yourself in a negative light, right? You're doing it to challenge yourself, to push yourself, to excel past what you thought was capable. But still, in a way, these things hurt. They are not comfortable. They are sometimes incredibly difficult to do. And it takes sometimes years of practice to get to a point where you're strong enough to do them. And I think instead of taking out, especially when it comes to the anger aspect of physical movement, or being able to transform anger into physical movement, because sometimes that's not always possible at the particular point you are in your journey in healing from maybe something terrible that's happened to you or something terrible that's happened to someone that you love. Um, is this, well, it hurts, but it's good for me. And it's a pain in a way that I can understand, assimilate, and find relief in, as opposed to a pain that I don't understand, a pain that's happened to me, as opposed to something I've brought on myself. And it's not something you can contain or control. So there's this, I think, dichotomy between peace and Zen and harmony with yourself, but it's also pain. It's intrinsically interlocked with pain because you have to push past this pain that your body is in to be able to do some of these things. Well, obviously, if you practice for a long time, you don't mind, but it's still
I think
like
anytime you're beginning a new movement, exercise, whatever regimen, you're going to have some pain that has to. It's because you're challenging your body in new ways. So I don't think that's an unusual thing. Um, what kind of advice would you give to somebody? And I'm not going to go into like me because I have chronic pain, and that's a whole different ball game when it comes to different kind of movement. But
sure.
what kind of advice would you give to somebody who was thinking about trying yoga out for the first time?
Well, typically in a studio, I think it's very relaxing. I think it's very healthy, a very healthy habit. I think it might feel a little awkward, at first. I think we all do in new social settings, which is, totally fine and acceptable. But if you really give it a chance, it can be transformative. It just kind of depends on what you're doing it for. I think most of us are trying to do something to help us cope with the harshness of life. Now that could go in, a million different ways, obviously, but this is kind of the way that I've chosen to cope with it because it's good for me. It makes me strong physically, so I'm capable for my family, and that's an important aspect of my life. It helps me to stay calm in very high stress environments. It allows me to think more logically because I know, well, with Taekwondo, I know that I could be very destructive,
And
and
that's a great
it's
place to
something you learn to
transition.
control.
I actually wanted to I wanted to transition. That's a great time to do it into Taekwondo. So I know that you still do some yoga, but I know that you're much more active with Taekwondo now. And I'm curious. Let's start with what led you to Taekwondo? Like,
Oh, it's always been since I was a little kid. I've always been interested in kung fu and martial arts, and I was never into the cage fighting specifically or, the brutality of it. I was more interested in the grace and the dance and the mutual respect and the commanding respect when you walk into a room and personal power. And so that's the aspect of martial arts that has always attracted me to it.
and how long have you been doing the Taekwondo now?
About 5 years.
Wow. So
I know
tell
it's been a
me
while.
tell me what your favorite thing about Taekwondo is.
I get to feel powerful.
I think that's really important for specifically, and I would say women, but I would say people who have been through some of the things that you and I have been through. I think
For sure.
we tend to, I don't want to say lose our power, and we certainly didn't give it away, it got taken from us, but we tend to lose sight of our own personal power. And so I love that that's something that's given that back to you.
Well, I had to find something, honestly, because I find physical movement very cathartic. I know that my body is working. I know that everything's working the way I want it to. My brain is controlling what's happening with me. And the more I connect the two, the stronger the connection becomes. And it was always this, I mean, it's kind of always been a passion of mine to be physical or moving my body, just going places, like I just wanted to explore things. And to do so, I needed a body that would get me there. So it was kind of more of a means to an end at first when I was young, but now
And
it's
I know with yoga, there's a lot of breathing techniques and meditation with that. Do you find that same thing in Taekwondo? Because I've never really even done martial
I've
arts.
found it
So
incredibly helpful because when you're doing intense physical movement like kicks, well, controlled kicks, I guess I should say, and punches where you're not exactly giving your all, but you're trying to learn or perfect a movement or the way your hips shift when try to punch something or the way that your foot pivots while you're trying to do a roundhouse kick. These are all control based, which means you have to be aware of every one of your muscles at a time. And I love that my attention and my focus is pulled fully and completely inward while I do these things.
so it's kind of mindful, like a mindful meditation then, because you're very consciously aware of what you're doing, but you're consciously aware of only what you're doing. You're not thinking about what happened yesterday with your ex-boyfriend or what happened where the kids are going to be tomorrow. You are focused on this thing in the present.
So that meditative mindset also helps when, you're feeling a lot of pain or maybe you're trying to push through discomfort in your muscles because your body is not comfortable in that position, but you have to a lot of martial arts is discomfort. The point is to be uncomfortable. And if you're not uncomfortable, then you're not doing it properly. So, and there's a lot of challenge in that. And I like to challenge myself. I find a lot of my energy in life comes from challenges I'm able to face and succeed. I mean, I fail. There's a challenge. When you pick a challenge, it should be significantly hard enough to challenge you, which means it should lead to some failure because that's the only way you truly learn. You can't be perfect at everything, especially if it's something you're just beginning. So
So
I think there's still forgiveness that you have to, and a lack of shame, maybe, in regards to how silly you might look or, what people might think about you while you're doing these movements at first because they feel very strange.
I used to love to dance. I can't really do it the way I used to because I have so many problems with my back, so much pain in my back. Um,
Right.
but I love that you equate Taekwondo to the gracefulness and the almost like dance movements. And I wish that I lived closer now so that I could see you do this. But does it feel like almost a dance for you?
Yeah. Well, because my passion for the art form comes from that. And so that's what I'm most interested in learning from it. I mean, yes, it is destructive, but I even though things can be destructive and have the opportunity to be destructive like you and I, making the choice to do something different has always intrigued me. And so this is a way that I feel powerful because and that's a change for me from my young adult life because I can destroy things, but I choose instead not to.
I think it's good that it gives that it helps you feel more powerful. And I again, I feel like this is a root chakra thing because, and I'm gonna probably do chakras a lot as we talk about things because I can see things that way. It connects with me that way. But I feel like this gives you not only root chakra because it gives you that safety, that security, but it also affects your solar plex chakra, which is about personal power. And that is something that you and I have struggled with too much, more than we should have, more than our fair share. And the fact that this helps bring your personal power back, that for me, that's speaking. That's us doing this. I This returns a lot of my personal power. It gives me a lot of belief in myself, that it returns that belief in myself. And for you, I think this will do that too, but for you that has really come from Taekwondo, which I think is amazing.
Me too. Honestly, it's been a dream come true. I've wanted to do it my whole life. When I was in gymnastics and when I was in ballet, I was secretly asking my parents, can I do martial arts? I mean, this is cool, but I really want to do that. They're like, no, no, this is more feminine. This is more your speed. And in my heart, I was like, no, I'm a dragon and I need to be doing dragon like things. And it's not acceptable that I'm not.
Please tell me that you actually said that because I love that.
I wish. I'm
I
older
am a
now,
dragon.
so I
I could
mean, I
totally
was born in
see
the year
your
of the
kids.
dragon from
I
the
could totally
Chinese
see your kids saying something
calendar.
like that. Seriously. Either one of them. Mama, I'm a dragon and I need to be doing dragon things.
And well, my daughter likes to express herself very much in that way, and she pretends a lot that she's this unicorn that's incredibly special, as she should, because she is. But, I think having a feeling inside of yourself that you are something, that you are important, that your thoughts are important, that your feelings are important, that regardless of what people feel about you, how you feel about yourself is more important than their reflection of you. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't take that into consideration, especially when it's people that you love and care about and want to have them see you in a positive light. But when it comes to everyday people or, those snide comments sometimes you run into in the grocery store or on the street or, whatever it is that you're doing, or even those negative comments that you say to yourself inside your own head that nobody ever hears, to feel powerful enough to be able to combat those things, whether it be physically or mentally, I think is the most crucial first step you could take. Or having the want to have that in your life.
So, do you have your children involved in Taekwondo or yoga? Either
I
one?
do. Yes, they do both.
Oh, they do both. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, do you think that's positive for them because they're going to start off with a stronger feeling of security and personal power?
Well, I would like to think so. But honestly, I'm not going to know until they get older how that really truly seeped into, their personal development. But I think having an environment where respect is not even encouraged, expected from you and others, and that environment allows you to play physically with people without hurting anyone and making sure that that is the ultimate goal. I think changes you as a person because you feel far more comfortable to be yourself because you are accepted, you are respected, your feelings matter. But, we're all on this journey of pushing past our own boundaries. So I think inevitably, I would like to think that that would have, a very positive impact on them.
So, how often do you and the kids do yoga or taekwondo or both?
Typically, we try to do like 3 or 4 times a week. Um, well, just because consistent practice allows you to feel better and it keeps you from getting used to not doing something. But also it's summertime. My kids are bored. You know, they don't like to be in home all the time, even though I'm incredibly grateful that my mom's retired now to be able to take care of them on the days that they're not going to camp. So they go 3 times a week and they do Taekwondo, they do yoga, they play games, they do, conditioning exercises. They have class on Korean language and learning how it is integrated with the martial arts.
And how often are you managing to get to do Taekwondo?
Well, I've been practicing like 2 to 3 nights a week, and I've been doing yoga, maybe about the same, but it's not always. Some days I do them both and I practice at home, and then there are days when I actually make it to the dojang and are able to interact with people who also, practice my craft, which is always exciting. And we have we have an environment where people are accepting of each other, and I think that has a lot to do with the place that I go and the people that are there and that choose to go there and that are kind of somehow weirdly attracted to, the vibes from our grandmaster.
Oh, I think it's
He's an
incredible that you're
amazing
doing it
guy.
as often as you are because, a year or two ago when we were kind of working through some issues, when we were doing a little coaching, you were struggling to be able to include that in the things that you were doing, and you have increased that a lot since I last asked you. So that's incredible.
Well, that a transformation that's happened recently, well, maybe not super recently, but in the last maybe like 7 months or so, I have, instead of finding life incredibly exhausting all the time, that I don't have the energy to exercise, or, well, I think of it now as taking care of myself. But now I find peace in actually doing the movements as opposed to thinking that these movements would make me more tired. And I couldn't possibly be faced with yet another thing I needed to do that day. So the amount of times that I find myself being physically active is a direct reflection of how okay I'm doing emotionally and mentally.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And actually, sometime we should have a talk about what in your life tells you you're doing okay, because I wrote a couple articles about that after some conversations with my husband many years ago, and it's really funny to see what kinds of things let you know you're doing okay. But I love that that's the shift that you've done in your thinking so that A, you're getting all the benefit you can from doing this often, and B, you're not looking at it as a chore, but as something beautiful and helpful. That's really
Yeah.
wonderful. I hate to do it, but you have to cut this off. We will be back again next week. I don't know yet what we're going to be talking about, but we definitely will be talking more about movement at other times. I know that that's something that you love and that you enjoy a lot. So that's really great because it's part of our Healthy Mind, Healthy Body, Healthy Spirit program. If you'd like to show support for Zen Summer, the hosts, and the information that we're sharing, you can visit us on ko-fi.com/Zen Summer. That's ko-fi.com/Zen Summer. And until next time, we wish for all of you, if not a Zen summer, then at least a Zen moment or two.